Hello, class. Today we'll be talking about Wrath Winery. It is a winery located in Soledad, California. It used to be a winery that I worked for and was very fortunate enough to still know the operations manager to allow me to do a VSM and an analytical observation of their manual bottling line, which is what we will be observing through this project. So as mentioned before, Wrath Winery is located in Soledad, California. It is in the Santa Lucia Highlands AVA. Sabrine Rodhams has been their winemaker for the past 15 years. She is currently one of only 3 women that are winemakers here in the Monterey Peninsula. Majority of her label of Wrath is driven by Pinot Noir. It's a very complicated grape due to the fact that there's about 3,000 different clones of it, and on property they grow between 18 to 20 every year, and her Wrath wines have been nominated and have won numerous awards through Wine Spectator across California and across the United States. So what makes Wrath Winery unique is that they're able to bottle and manufacture their own wine in-house at the actual winery. They also do bottling for about 10 different other wineries in the region. It is Pinot Noir driven, so there is about 14 different blends or wines. So for them to still be a hand driven manual bottling line is unique. There's 14 different bottles and wines that they're doing every year. Their production ranges between 5 to 10,000 cases across their wines and others. And it has been voted one of the top wineries across the United States and in California. Nowadays, wine companies and wineries are much more competitive and detail oriented with their business to improve their competitive advantages. Due to this, it is relevant to keep the customer satisfied and the retention rate at a higher rate than their competitors. In the wine industry, this cannot be truer. For wineries to stay competitive and ahead of their competitors, a form of lean management must be implemented into their operations. Specifically, we'll be looking at the A3 report and how their manufacturing byline can use some of implementations of Lean Six Sigma and other forms of lean thinking that can be implemented to improve on their efficiency and reduce waste. The challenge in this project was the ability to connect lean thinking into an industry that is not as developed in lean management. This is due to the wine sector being based on a long century of tradition, and from this, their manufacturing processes have stayed relatively unchanged. The century-long tradition of winemaking is focused on creation of the wine, which is the main focal point of the business. But with ever-changing demand of the customer and the changing in sustainability and packaging and business practices of companies they purchase from, winemaking has to adapt and change to meet those demands. The wine industry has a uniqueness to it in that the diversity of the processing methods within the wine industry. The wine industry is largely push-driven with processes needing to change depending on the quality of incoming grapes, which subsequently creates challenges in processing. Unlike the paper and plastic manufacturing industries where products can have a well-determined and set characteristics both at the higher end and lower end, the wine industry uses a diverse variety of a processing method to obtain certain quality characteristics, depending on several variables such as which grape varietal, style of wine, aging method, whether it's new oak, French oak, American oak, neutral oak, and the fermentation process, whether it's a single fermentation process that happens while in aging or if it's a malolactic fermentation process in the bottle. Looking at the A3 report on the bottom line, we went ahead and observed it with myself, Alex Kirkwood, who's a good friend of mine, who's the operations manager currently from them, Sabrine Rodhams, who's the winemaker, and Chris Whaley, who's their wine director. Uh, Clarity of the problem we're going to be looking at is the bottom line for Wrath Winery. It's not going to focus on the harvest or the winemaking process or developing new operations or their sales or inventory management. The problem really was we conducted VSM and realized that there was a lot of idling and bottlenecking between certain operations, which was causing for delays and tack time not being met at certain points. The target was to reduce idling time between machines, improve on inventory control of raw materials, and implement some of 5S lean thinking. To analyze the root causes, we went ahead and did a cause and effect chart, which we'll be going into a lot more. Some of the countermeasures we kind of observed that we could implement right off the bat was cross-training, purchasing a new filler machine, and implementing a much more approachable way of maintaining an inventory of raw materials. Uh, and we'll be looking at 3 different abilities that we can think about using lean management and implementing to improve their wine bottling manufacturing. And then, unfortunately, we weren't able to implement the ideas due to the fact that I'm not currently employed there anymore, but was able to present my findings to both the owner and Sabrine Rodhams and my friend Alex Kirkwood with the potential VSM and the potential focus on what could the new VSM improve on, and we'll be going into that deeper in the next slides. So the initial VSM, we found four major issues. One was to supply the material on time. Rath currently uses only one supplier, and it takes 7 days for them to receive their raw materials, which in this case would be the glass bottles. It's also very ineffective in movement of operators. Between the blower, washer, and filler, there's too much idling time. Too much new bottles are coming in organized to be washed, but very little are coming out the same output that the blower is doing it. One thing we also learned is the condition of workplace. It's very disorganized. Currently, when harvest is done and goes straight into bottling to bottle the previous year, things tend to be missing, things to bench not be organized, and tools and machinery is all over the place. An implementation of the 5S can definitely help in cleaning, organizing, and sorting the workplace to reduce the waste and time of looking for machinery, looking for parts, looking for the necessary material that's required to start the bottling process. The defects in bottling was also a huge issue, which was in the filler. Currently, Rath has a filler machine that is outdated. It takes more time to maintain it, buying parts. At times, the corking of the bottle, the cork itself, is not actually implementing a good vacuum seal to keep oxygen out. The argon tanks were also having issues in implementing the argon gases into the bottle before the corkage, which could then cause issues with oxygen going into the wine and then causing it to be corked, or the vacuum would not be tight sealed and a scanner would be able to tell you that it needs to be reopened and recorked and causing more waste. So looking into the cause and effects, here on this diagraph, we went ahead and looked at some of the Rath bottling operators, their customers, the raw materials, the completion of the wine bottle, the bottling line itself, and the inventory. The lack of not experience, very understaffed, very slow operators was causing a lot of issues in the actual operations of the bottling line. The bottling line itself was very ineffective, lots of waste, very slow production, and what was causing that was the inventory management was lacking the necessary raw materials to be able to start bottling wine effectively. Customers, especially with Rath, the demand is high. Their wine is very popular in the area. Their demand is expected to increase on an annual basis. The value also with different wineries in Monterey County, there's so many to choose from. So the value in the bottle is starting to change. The wine is changing, and how they're going to meet that demand. The raw materials, as mentioned before, it takes too long for them to receive the bottles themselves. They need to find a new supplier, or they need to have multiple suppliers. In the completion of the wine bottle, it lacks the resources. The process is too long, and because of the filler issue with the machinery, the wine could be corked. And as a customer is receiving the wine, they could be receiving a bottle that is just corked and is not a good bottle. This is causing ineffective lean or implementation of lean thinking in the bottling line is causing issues for them currently. Some suggested implementations into their new VSM, which we forecasted the possibilities, was including a new supplier. I was able to find a new one that was a 3-day delivery time and was also able to observe that the inventory management at the winery where they store unused wine bottles for their bottling line was not being maintained properly. They were only maintaining about 1,000 bottles on hand with the capability of holding up to 5,000. This is an opportunity for them to implement lean thinking and maintaining a necessary inventory to start the bottling process as soon as harvest is over. We're also able to observe that through the blower operators, there was enough operators being organized and manually push the bottles themselves into a washer, and but what was causing the issue in the idling time there was that there is about five available or three available shifts for the washer, but it was being understaffed. With the implementation of cross training, they would be able to move certain rebalancing of the line bottle or the bottle line so that there was operators that could operate different machinery without having to hire new employees. We're also able to observe that the filler machine was causing a major issue in implementation of either purchasing or buying and used one that was a better capable filler machine that was uh, causing less defects and would be able to improve in quality control and be able to move through the filler process into labeling and packaging at a much higher rate, be able to cause less quality control and be able to produce the product at a faster rate with the necessary lean thinking implementations. In conclusion, the wine industry, especially with Wrath Winery, we can implement new management of lean thinking, implement 5S, implement VSM, forecasting and mapping. And the three major things that I suggested was to cross-train their employees to make sure that once operators or if operators need to man different operations of the bottom line, they can. Introduce a new supplier or continue with their supplier and introduce a second to ensure that their inventory is always up to par. And introducing the possibility of an automated bottom line. This is mainly for main reason for this is because their expansion and wanting to meet newer demand in the upcoming years, as well as bottling for newer and other wineries. And automation or small automation in their current bottling line could help them in achieving that demand and being able to achieve less waste and be able to go through the bottling line process a lot faster, smoother, and more efficient.